All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals, and people on the run in fantastical settings. This, of course, is a brand new episode of Pink Buzz. Joining us tonight, we have a very special creator guest. He's worked with several really amazing creators, and he's kind of, now off doing his own thing. But go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Rudy.
Hi, I'm Marco Rudy. I am a person that does things from time to time. I paint some
Yeah,
stuff now and then, and apparently I write them. I write them too.
yeah. You started with your own book now, your
Yep.
self-published book.
Yep.
Got it right here.
hmm
RDW,
So
uh,
beautiful.
Tale
Oh,
of
thank
Lost
you.
Fantasy. Yeah, yeah. Great stuff, man.
Yep.
And I didn't know what it stood for until I read the back where
Yeah.
Becky Cloonan wrote her little blurb about how she loved it. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, it stands for Rainy Day Woman.
Yeah.
So
It's also a we don't like those copyright infringement stuff. So because it's inspired by inspired that specifically just the title. It's inspired by a Bob Dylan song that is called "A Rainy Day Woman," which is
okay.
what we wanted to call the title. And the song is about. It has some hints about like getting stoned in like a metaphorical way and whatnot, but also getting stoned, which is a theme throughout the story. So I'm like, oh, that's a clever one. And to avoid, because initially, my very first pitch was of Lost Fantasy, which is the gist of what
hmm
I'm trying to say with this.
hmm
But there is a Korean cell phone game with that, and then
Ah,
I did a like just the anagram, just OLFA,
hmm
and it was also stood also for something else. I'm like, okay,
It gets
and
complicated, eh?
yeah, so I kept the title as a subtitle,
Yeah.
and one again I'm going like just immediately I'm going on 25 different tangents, but the thing about the song was I've always wanted to tell a story on the beats of a song.
hmm
Like I'm a pretty big fan of the Matrix movies, and my favorite song from the soundtrack is Club to Death, which is a song where on the first movie they're walking about and the woman in red comes about. It's the song that plays there, and I've always wanted to tell a story on the melody and beats of that song. I haven't done that with this, but so far the closest I can get was to use the gist and title of a song to tell a story that may or may not be related to what
hmm
the lyrics of the song talk about.
hmm hmm
Cool. Yeah, music plays a big part in my writing too. I've did a few pieces kind of based on pieces of music I like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that motif as well.
Like to the point that in the sometime in the past I asked DJs and even asked a musical engineer how they make arrangements and how cool would it be to actually have a story it told in the beats of a song, especially if you're aware of where the song goes faster, where it goes slower, what's happening, what is the composer trying to tell with the story and whatnot. And what then became of Lost Fantasy and eventually RDW was in the past something that I was going more towards just trying to find a way to tell the story in the beats of Club to Death, which my initial pitch to myself and when I actually had a collaborator before was to again to the Matrix in the I don't know if you remember in Animatrix the one of the first episodes is called shit Second Renaissance, in which they detail what happened between the war between the humans and machines, and the whole conflict starts over a nanny robot killing a person. And my idea was, what if I told the story of that robot in which he achieves sentience. Eventually, it ends with them killing that person in the animatrix and whatnot. And that was always going to be to the beat of, or to the pacing and beat of Club to Death. I started because the idea was this robot starts dreaming, and because it's a nanny robot relates to a child, and through the child it starts dreaming, and in the dream it has an avatar that does fantastic things. So I started researching for the fantasy, and eventually I just got to RDW. I'm like, the robot thing can wait for a bit. That's where we are.
Well, back to the idea of doing it to the beats. I was wondering, how would you accomplish that? Would you like do maybe different panels with different colors to show
Yeah,
the beat structure?
yeah. As you can see, also in that book, I already have a very peculiar approach to storytelling in the layout design.
Yeah, you're
I would use some of that. Like, I mean, let me see if I can think of like a super famous song. Um, Incubus Drive is, everybody knows Incubus Drive. Whatever
Yeah.
tomorrow do, I'll be there with open eyes and open arms, whatever. Actually, I can't use that because he's already drawing on it. But the song has moments there's actually towards the end of the song where it's building up and it has a pause. It changes a little bit and then it goes back to the chorus. And like there's a beginning, a middle, and ending to that song. I would approach the story that I'm telling in a different way to match each beginning, middle, and end, the pause, and the conclusion, which would the story would have been about. Whatever tomorrow brings, I'll be there with open arms and open arms. So shit like that. It's an oversimplification of how I would approach it.
beautiful.
Now that you mentioned the Matrix, just don't want to get too off subject, but did you watch the latest latest Matrix? Did you like it?
I did. I am like, the Matrix series is my favorite series of
Yeah, franchise.
my
Yeah.
favorite trilogy. I have watched them back to back to back. I have played Enter the Matrix, which is not a good game, but I had it when I was living in Brazil, and I know all of the scenes that relate from the game that will go match up on Matrix Reloaded. I don't hate revolutions, so I have consumed the Matrix as a product and as a like a geek culture thing, back to back to back. It's my favorite. So I went to the movie. I actually watched it like a few days ago. I went to, like, having seen commentary that is negative and positive, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. And I thought that the things that I missed about the movie are, some of them are pretty derived from the fact that you can see that this was made during a pandemic, so there's not a lot of sets.
Okay.
There's quite a bit of CGI that they would have used sets, especially on the first movie. Uh, the other thing being the soundtrack. The soundtrack of the first movie specifically, and the second one, is very iconic. And I thought the soundtrack was, with the exception of the Alice song, uh, you're like, you can't quite remember it.
Mhm.
I mean, you watch Matrix One for the first time, you remember it. And
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of the using "Wake Up" at the end of the movie, using a version of the song. I would have used the same song. I would have preferred the same song.
Mhm.
I think the movie, it's like hilariously meta in some points that I was like, okay, that's a bit on the nose. Like,
Yeah.
there's some things that are too meta that I'm like, I get what they were trying to do. The fact of like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, focus groups want to make this game. They want to make this movie happen because Warner Brothers wants to make some money out of this movie. And
Yeah.
the gist of the story is, oh, Neo gets saved by fanboys. You're like, yeah, that's true. So I liked it. I don't think it's I don't think it's the best. I definitely don't think it's the worst. I would have put it right between Reloaded and Resurrections.
Okay.
Sorry, and Revolutions.
Yeah.
Um, as I said, the things that I disliked, like you could even immediately say, ah man, if only they had this. That it's just because of production and the way things are filmed nowadays. They feel like very nitpicky things, like the way the agents transform. It's a little too fast. Like whereas on the first trilogy, you would see that the person is kind of struggling a little bit,
A
like
little bit. Yeah. Fighting it a little. Yeah.
to retain. Whereas on this, like, pop, they're like they're agents. You're like, okay, but like at the very end of the movie, when they're like, oh, they're using a swarm, I'm like, oh, this is Twitter. Like, I'm like, oh wow, this is like Twitter bombs and review bombing and whatnot. I'm like, this is, as I said, the movie. All of these movies have their own messages and whatnot. I think Reloaded and Revolutions get too high up on their own concepts, and they get lost in that.
Yeah.
Whereas The Matrix One can be self-contained, and it's a movie, and it's very cool. If
Yeah.
the idea was to harken back to what they were trying to do with The Matrix, being that The Matrix One uses mythology and pop culture from a lot of stuff, and Matrix Resurrections uses The Matrix One, and like all of the stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, The Matrix One, this happened on The Matrix One. No, 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 no. You're like, yeah, I understand. Like I get everything that the movie is trying to say. I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was bad at all. There are things that I really, really liked, and there are things that you're like, yeah, but what about this? But in the first movie, you end the movie, we're like, yeah, but what about this as well? I mean, I being like such a nerd for these movies that I am, I can tell you that Cypher in the first movie is a huge plot hole, because Cypher is John Pantoliano's character, the bald guy that has dinner with an agent.
Hmm.
But in order to have dinner with an agent, he has to jack in. In order to jack in, he needs a operator to jack him in.
Hmm.
Who jacked Cypher in to go have dinner with Smith?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're like, that's a
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. 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 But I mean, it. There's small things that sometimes they have a hard time working out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm as I said, for me, it's not as bad as people say. It's not the best thing since sliced bread. I wasn't happy that they were going to make a new movie.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very clever that they use a video game as oh, he was stuck programming a video game. I thought it was awesome. Oh yeah. It's just, again, too on the nose. It can be on the nose. Outside of that, it's fine. I thought it was fine.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah,
just
the only thing-
interesting. Yeah, to know your opinion because you're a big fan of the franchise. So yeah.
The only thing that really bugged me is I wish Neo did a little more than just blow fire out his hands. But aside from that, like that
Yeah,
was kind of my only main complaint.
That was the other one that I was like, okay, so Neo is weaker. And my only explanation is when they said, oh yeah, you were with the stuff that they were feeding you to be on the Matrix, you got real hooked on it. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. He's diminished because of that. It's all right. It's a weak explanation if that's what it is, but it's my fan fiction-y explanation. I don't know what the reason would be.
So yeah, now RDW is your first the first book you've written, right? Yourself?
Yeah.
And you've worked from scripts from some pretty established names in comics like Scott Snyder, James Robinson, Matt Kent. How much did you learn or take from them working from their scripts, and how much did that help you when you came to write your own book?
It is difficult to ascertain that, because at the end of the day, I am like as much as a visual artist as a writer. writer. I don't know. I'm a writer now. So as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
oh, hold on. This is Killing Moon and Echo Buddy Bunny Man. Exactly. See, I agree with this. It's just that somebody commented about the music. Anyways, what was the question? I got lost there for a second. Oh, the influences. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from working with the because you work quite a bit, like
Yeah.
especially at Marvel with some established writers. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's much more interpretation of script that
Mm-hmm.
I've had. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for like 15 years now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interpreting script from different. Like, my first big script was from Grant Morrison. It was Final Crisis, and I didn't have a lot of time to like play around. It's like you're on a timer, go, because I was
Mm-hmm.
filling it for somebody else. So I think inherently I convey some of my influences just in the way that I interpret script. But the problem for me is that I I don't create my script in the way they do. In fact, uh, I probably would chalk up other artists that are also writers that I probably would say, I guess my method is similar, like
Yeah.
Bill Sienkiewicz when he wrote Stray Toasters, or David Mack, or J.H. Williams, in which I believe, and by talking with David Mack a little bit, I know at least from him that there is a lot of their visual in the way they script. Like the way I script is I have topics of what is the story about, and then after the topics, if I like initially the story that I'm telling was going to be a mini series on like a 22 to 24 pages
Mm-hmm.
issue floppies. And in my pitch, I had split. All right, so this is topic. This is what happens. This is what happens. This is what happens. The arc of the hero and whatnot, being that this is again when I was working with a collaborator, which was just at the very beginning, in which I would say this is not a savior trope. This character is not savior of the world. No. This is completely opposite. So it's also not destroying the world. It's just somebody. So I have the topics, and then I would go issue by issue. Which now instead of issue by issue, I go like scene by scene. The book is 40 pages is the first 40 pages of story, and the second one is actually 60 pages of story.
60 pages.
And
Yeah.
and I am like, all right, what I'm trying to say in the whole story is this: the potential how do you say, beats could be this. So I then divide the way I'm going to draw. All right, I have 60 pages, an average of 4 to 6 pages per scene. So I put an average of 4 to 6 pages per scene, and a scene is, oh, they arrive at gate. And there's they arrive at gate, and there is a reference to somebody losing their memory, because the whole thing is about memory loss. Maybe it is, maybe
Mm-hmm.
it isn't. So maybe a culture is being taken by another one. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm referencing colonization. Maybe something like, which can be a reference to losing your memory. So this is my scene. My scene has now 5 pages. I have to put on now on 5 pages. I go like conflict. I just write topics on each page. Conflict here, conflict there, conflict there, and then I start sketching a layout.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like on RDW, you will notice that there is the first opening scene. The character is having what could be construed as a fever dream,
Mm-hmm.
and if you look at the layout, the whole thing is there's kind of a conscious streamlines coming of a closed eye right at the beginning. And if you pay attention to that, and then you notice that when the character 4 pages in, the character wakes up from that fever dream, and it's still on the eyes, focusing on the eyes. They're coming out of that and go through a reality that is much grayer and much darker than the vivid fever pitch they are rooted in reality, and reality sucks, so it's all gray. And at the same time, they're rooted, therefore the whole situation is enveloped by tree branches, roots, and whatnot. So
Mhm.
I designed that in that fashion, and then I write like like a little bit of suggestive dialogue, because
The dialogue, yeah.
the character wants to be. I want these characters to evoke these kinds of sentiments. I'm not very good at dialogue, so I do the. I want this to evoke this kind of sentiment. I write the dialogue. I rewrite the dialogue. I pencil it in. I rewrite the dialogue. I paint it in, and because all of it is written, I can. Well, I could show you, but all of it is written. All of my dialogue is written on the margins of the bleed of the page that I drew, like all of
Okay.
it, like very tiny. So I then write that on my script on the computer, in which I change it, and then I send it to my editor, which he will then say, "Yeah, people don't talk like that."
Okay.
So I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." Like for instance, right at the beginning, she asked me, "Your characters talk like this is a fantasy book and your characters talk like normal lingo, street lingo." I'm like, yeah, I want that. I want them to be less. If there is a character that I would want to speak in a much loftier way, I would convey it that way. But no, these people, I want them to speak like, because fantasy can be a little boring when characters talk like that. But that's just a personal opinion. So at the end of the day, my attempt to writing a script is extremely visual. It's
Visual, yeah.
yeah. It starts from visual, it ends on visual, and at that very end is when I finally write the script after my editor corrects it, and I'm like, okay, so now people talk. I remember the first time I sent my script, like raw script, to a friend of mine. He told me, yeah, it's all right, but all your characters sound the same. I then sent that very script to Brad Meltzer, which I had worked with as well before. And he was like, oh, I actually really enjoyed this. And then I sent it to my editor, finally, like 6, 8 months after that. My editor was like, who did you write the script to? Because there will be pages, because the way I write script for myself, I have page 1 to 5, characters on a fever dream. I describe the fever dream, but I don't put panel 1, 2, 3. I don't put dialogue. I just put like, oh yeah, from 1 to 3, she's on a fever dream. And then they meet, they're partying, and there's an invasion. Ooh, fight. And that's what I wrote. And she's like, my editor's like, I'm sorry, I don't get what's happening here.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but it's all in the script. And then I went and read the script. Yeah, it's all in the script for me. They're like
Does it?
lines
Yeah.
of dialogue that I just put. And then she said, "Who's she?" So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because you're working from the script's coming straight from you, right?
right.
So you just need the bullet points to have references.
Yeah,
So you just to remember, it's all came from you, so it's still in your head. So you don't need it to be as specific as if you were trying to explain it to someone else, because you're the writer and the artist. So
yeah,
you don't have that disconnect where you have to be very specific to try to explain what you're trying to convey to someone else. So I could see
yeah,
how it'd be a much more fulfilling way to work.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you must have really enjoyed that, like
Well,
working
yeah,
from your own script, as opposed to
yeah,
maybe, yeah, because you're still going to have constraints because you're trying to interpret someone else's
yeah,
idea, what's going on in their head. And so I could see how, yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Like, I have posted this on social media, and this is when I actually started writing the book.
Hmm.
First, it's very very hard, especially for me. I'm so used to interpret it, to being told like this is how this is gonna look like, or yeah, you have creative freedom, but this is what the scene is trying to say. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's my turn to do that. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I wrote that like writers have the heart. I cannot find out how can they create worlds without visualizing them, because I cannot. And it's like it must be super hard. But at the same time, it's me saying, I don't know that I will ever work on somebody else's script. Of course I will, but after being so much in charge of what I'm doing and how I want to do, to go back to, oh, by the way, you have to do it this way, and this is how the visuals have to look like. Yeah, it's constraining. You're like, oh yeah, by the way, this is how reality works. That's not this creator owns just a pipe dream that you do for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I was looking, like, just the visuals in this, like, you could see, because you set your own deadlines for this book, right? And it took the time it took. And
well, yes and no. The deadline was the one from the Kickstarter campaign, which I would do. Like, I will do another crowdfunding campaign as well, but that kind of sets the deadline. For me, it's like this: I can produce work in a much faster way, but it's work that I will take no pride in doing. And so I split the book in 52 weeks, which is a year. And I'm like, it's 40 pages. I will have plenty of time in 52 weeks with a page a week to dedicate myself to the time that I can. It's funny because I posted this, something akin to that, on social media again, and J.H. Williams was like, wow, how can you do it so fast? I'm like, fast? But like, that's not fast. There were pages that I took faster, that I did it faster, but always sticking to the 1 page per week thing. And it allows myself to, even if I'm like, okay, the page is done, okay, but I can add this smaller detail. It would allow myself to do that, which is, like, for instance, the Winter Soldier, which is the last ongoing series that I did, which for ongoing series was a long time ago. It's 2014 when I finished it. I painted the whole book. Sorry, it was 9 issues. I painted, because I did half 9 and half 10. I painted 9 out of 11. Yeah, half 9. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. I did 9 out of 11 issues, all painted with 3 covers in between. At the end, I was exhausted.
Yeah, because you have much tighter deadlines, right? With these, you're working for the big 2. Yeah.
It started with a very generous deadline, but also it started with me trying to learn how to do gouache. So I took something like 2 months to do the first issue, and I'm like, I can't do this. Gouache hates me, and I hate it. So I'm just gonna do something that I'm way more familiar with. So on issue 2, I had already eaten some of my fat that was given to.
Yeah.
But I managed to, again, 9 out of 11 is not so bad. It's just that it's super taxing at the end, super, super taxing. So I decided to do something that was the complete opposite. Take the time to do the stuff, especially if we could get the funding for that. The book is funded, so my day job is paid. I just have to concentrate and do the stuff that I have to do.
Now you just mentioned before, the next chapter to this is going to be 60 pages.
Yes, of story.
And you pointed behind you, so that means you're already starting to work on it.
Oh no. Okay, I'm going to show just a little bit. So these are 11 by 22 Strathmore paper that I used to paint, like these. These are like pads with it. And with the exception of this one and this one, which is the pads that it's newly used pad. This is book 2. This is book 3. I have 60 pages all pencil. Sorry, I have 50 pages all pencil that I will change and add 10 pages to. And I have somewhat 50 pages all penciled for book 3.
Wow.
So
nice.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I don't mind showing a little bit. So 1 second. I don't know that I have like a lot of script on this, but there you go. There's a clear example of what I was saying. Oh, I just dropped that. That's not nice. I should pick that up. This is a page which it starts with a reflection, so it's inverted. But as you can see, the script is right here. The dialogue is right here.
Along the and the bleed.
Yeah, all of my dialogue, the way that I approach this is there. So yeah,
Cool.
just an example of what I do.
I'm seeing them awesome. Page, the panel breakdowns in pencil form is beautiful as well. Really, really kind of neat to see how you develop that, and how you come up with the designs for it is beyond me. But I absolutely love your panel layouts.
Oh, I can
Um,
talk about it.
oh, sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know how you go about your format. I'm just picking up because these things fell.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know how you go about your format, but I can talk about it. It's fine.
Oh, well, I mean, even like you were talking about Winter Soldier a while back, and the way you would do those weird kind of hive style panel layouts with the sci-fi fantasy stuff really
Yeah,
popping off in it, looking like the old 1970s surreal spy comics from like the Nick Fury era and stuff like that.
that's
I just
exactly
was wondering
how
how
I
you.
yeah, that's exactly how I got into the book actually. Because just again, I'm just picking these up because they fell. But when I did a book called like I did a Doctor Strange annual with Frank Barbieri, which was eventually my initial partner in all of the RDW stuff. And when we finished that book, I thought I was going to get given the Doctor Strange title. In fact, I lobbied for it. Me and Frank we were always on the editor's ear for that. And Brevoort, we liked it. We actually got the best reviewed Marvel comic of the month at that time. So I'm like, all right, so this is gonna happen. And when they approached me, like, oh yeah, we got your new ongoing. It's the Winter Soldier, right after the movie came out. And I'm like, yeah, but like the stuff that I do doesn't jive with the street, like a street type
Mhm.
character. I'm way more weird in the way that I approach storytelling. Like you saw the Spider-Man book that I did. Like, you want that for the Winter Soldier? So I actually said I don't think I'm the right artist for that. And they came back like, no, what we want you to do is like exactly what you had described, Johnny, like the spy comics, the Steranko era of Nick Fury. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So so that's how I got the gig. Like immediately, all right, if it's that type of approach, yes, I can do it. So I was hooked.
But like I was saying, the extra time that you take for this book, it really, really comes through. Like, it's beautiful. Like the pages, and you see your style, like from Swamp Thing, like when you split art duties with Yannick Paquette,
Yeah.
like the layouts, a lot of the Swamp Thing layouts I find are like lend themselves to this book. Like you see a lot of like kind of because of the with the branches and like the way the layouts are more organic. You really see that coming through. Like you could see that's part of your style, and I really dig it. And it's great for this book because, like you said, we're talking about like a surrealist, like fever dreams, and you don't know if it's a flashback, if it's a dream, reality, and you know, so it kind of flows, and I think it's fantastic the way it's done.
Thank you. Thank you. I can only say thank you.
Yeah. How, like, working at the Big Two, like on Swamp Thing, you split art duties with Yannick Paquette. Was that something that you enjoyed working, having to share art duties on a book? Because I found you two, your styles matched up really well.
It's funny because
I found it very fluid. It was almost sometimes hard to see where the break was from when he finished off and you started a new page. It was extremely fluid from you to him and him to you. Like I thought it was a fantastic team up for art duties anyway.
We did have kind of a set parameter of how to approach the like a document on how to approach the layout, what represents what, so we wouldn't deviate too much from each other. Because actually, at the beginning, the first issue that I did, I think it was 5, and I was coming up like I would always send the layouts to the editor Yannick and Scott for approval. Not because they asked me to, it's just because I just thought it was better to work that way. And when I did the first few pages, Yannick came back and like, actually, you should follow this design protocol so we're all on the same page. And for some reason, at the beginning, I wanted to match him like a lot, like beat for beat. The problem was, um, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, I can try to do what this guy was doing, but Yannick, he was doing digital drawings, of course,
Okay.
with 30 years of experience in comic books, and I'm like, oh no, I can try to do that. And I would like criticize myself, like be all over myself, like I can't match this. He's just too good. And then like it's just like start doing your own thing. Just follow the protocol. Start doing your own thing. We just started having way more fun doing the book. I would say that I think it's issue 8 or 9, which was like one of my favorites that I worked on. In which I'm like, yeah, we have the design, we have the protocol. I just have to do following that whatever I want to do. Following that, oh yeah, let's go. So it became way more fun. I think the only thing that the two things that actually got to me on that run was I'm a big fan of the Alan Moore run, and I think it's one of the best written storylines in comics, like period. And I thought that Scott's run, while being really good, it was very gory, and I'm not like a very gory person. And like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, there's very little gore. It's psychological terror for the most part, uh, and it's very, 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 very clever. So the problem for me was I use reference. So I spent a year with pictures of dead cows and dead people and dead this and dead that, looking at reference as I'm gonna draw, and that would put me down.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Kind of
Yeah.
like kind of like murder detectives, right? That have to look at this stuff nonstop.
Yeah,
And
it's just drains.
yeah,
It drains,
yeah.
uh, I remember because the first one was the city of the rot or something. That the
Mhm.
description had like tents made out of people's skins, and I'm
Mm.
like, yeah, okay, for sure. And then Scott is like, oh, I love the way you did the city of the rot. Now you get to design the realm of the rot. I'm like, come
Uh,
on! I already looked at enough dead carcasses, and so that was something that it's just drained me down. But
okay.
one thing is that Yannick, he's an extremely positive guy, so he keeps like bringing you up. So it was very, very nice to work with him.
Mhm. Very cool. Um, that brings me to Yannick's a Montrealer, and I think you used to live, but now you live around the Montreal area.
Yeah, I'm in Summit de Park, which is 2 hours away from Montreal.
Yeah. So you have you're pretty tight with a lot of the Montreal guys
Yeah.
that work around, like Andy. In your thank yous, there you thank Giselle Degasse as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like, how much did they help you out with this book? 'Cause I know you say thank you to them and stuff, and you have Andy as well. You said
Yeah,
Andy
yeah.
was pushing
Like
was a
Andy,
big
yeah.
yeah.
Andy, I would say that Andy and Giselle, they are paramount to this because Andy, before I started working on Creator on at all, at the time Carrie Nord was living in Montreal. He's actually back living in Montreal because he had been away. But we would hang out a lot, me, Andy, and Carrie. And Andy has been doing Creator on for a very long time. And in fact, for the most part, Andy was like, I've pretty much conquered Creator on, and I would like to work to do stuff on the big two.
Mhm.
which it did one of the something, one of the
Yeah,
issues of something.
for the Rot World crossover.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, it's warranted that he could get more. I mean, he should get more. It's just as simple as that. In any case, whereas me and Carrie, we were exclusively working on the big two. Like, my first gig was an Image Shadowline book way back when, but immediately after that, my second gig, outside of doing covers for Boom, was Final Crisis. So me and Carrie, we were always on the other side discussing how it would be to come to create our own,
Theater
discuss
owned.
ideas
Yeah.
and whatnot. But it was always shy and tentative. Whereas Andy was like, "No, guys, you got to do this. We got to do this." So he was consistently pushing us to come up with ideas to do something, and so much so that I think when he got, it was like his 40th birthday, I gave him the my promo image that I did for the story that was before RDW, which was called 01, and it was the one about the robot dreaming that I told you about.
Okay.
And so if I'm pretty sure that if he had not insisted so much, I probably wouldn't dabble into the creator own, or at least wouldn't be as gung ho at going at it. Whereas with Giselle, it was kind of a similar incentive, but going to Kickstarter, going to crowdfunding, because I kept approaching like Image, Aftershock. I approached Skybound, a bunch of companies. Hey, I have this concept. At the time, I only had the pitched concept and short story, which I actually used in a campaign. And I'm like, I have this, and there was a lot of maybes. And there was actually one that could have worked through Kickstarter as well, but they needed the last person to take a decision, and I was waiting for like 3 months. So I'm like, you know what, this is gonna go through Kickstarter. I'm just gonna do it myself. So Giselle, she put me aware of all the logistics around Kickstarter, what I had to do about starting a company or not starting a company, all of the legalese, all of the logistics involved in even printing the book. So I would say that both Giselle and Andy, they are paramount to this existing.
You also say thank you to Brenda and Troy, two great people. I've met them before.
Yeah, Troy
They live
Little.
in they live in PI.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
might know Troy from like a bigger name book that he worked on was Rick and Morty, the Dungeons
Yeah,
and Dragons, and
and
Brenda's been working on
My Little Pony. She
the
did
My
My
Little
Little
Pony
Pony.
and the cat one. What's it called? There's the Netflix series based on that as
Oh,
well.
I forgot. But she was also she was also he I think he was also known by doing stuff for the Powerpuff Girls. In fact, I have one of his
Yeah.
pages from the
Yes.
Powerpuff Girls.
Yes. He did
Yeah.
Powerpuff Girls. Yeah.
So
And
they
used
also
to,
helped me in
yeah.
the same capacity. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were very helpful in discussing about the printing companies, how to go about. Like they gave me hints about the National Library. Again, the legalese and logistics around working on a creator own, which is something that I had never done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. And now I saw you post that now you're doing a lot of you're planning on doing more cover work again.
Yeah.
Is that through necessity so you can have more time to work on your actual book?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because I saw you posted that cover you did for the House of Slaughter.
House of Slaughter, yeah.
Beautiful painting. I love it.
I posted a mistake last year.
Yeah.
I posted it a little too early, and the editorial asked me to take it down. So now I posted again, like they posted first, and then I shared it.
Okay.
But yeah. Basically, I if I can make time to work on a book and of course pay the bills, do a few covers or do a few commissions, grants me time to prepare for the next crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah. And
So is your cover going to be like a ratio, or are you, or what type of variant is your House
What
of
do you mean?
Slaughter cover?
What do you mean?
Oh, is it going to be just a basic cover?
Like an AB, or is it going to be an incentive cover that?
I have
Incentive
no
variant.
idea. I have
You
no
have
Okay.
no
idea.
idea.
Well, the
Okay.
book is already out, so I have no idea. For me, it's just variant cover, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
in my opinion, you should have one of the ones that are worth like 250 or whatever. Like how insane those something killing the children covers go
Um,
for.
See, this is the point where I don't know where I'm at in a way that, for me, there is there is a bigger jump to have to be recognized as a more recognizable creator in my field. But then again, I talk to peers and then they're like, oh no, you did this and you did that. So for
Mhm.
me, I'm not in the mainstream enough to draw that kind of attention because these are the people that are going to buy the book. So I don't know that I am cover name guy, but gladly in the industry, or at least for some of my peers or some of the ones that I admire, I am recognized as, oh yeah, not only you exist, it's like you're not so bad. So that's okay, but that's not how it works. What it works is if your name sells. So I
Yeah.
don't, especially since the last time I did consistent cover work was more than a year ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just get out of limelight.
Yeah. But
You,
I
I
mean,
can see you catching back up fast,
oh
man.
yeah,
Like
like
I saw Raza go from nobody knew who he was to his covers going for bank in a matter of
Who?
months. So, this was a couple years ago. He kind of did a lot of stuff for like Red 5 and stuff. He was a really indie artist, and then he
Mm,
started doing covers for like X-Men and stuff like that, and everybody just fell in love with him, and he became like one of the hugest artists at the time. You know what I
so
mean?
there
So.
you go. Yeah. So if
and
I can
especially
go
yeah,
on,
you're
go on.
doing a cover for House of M, which is a pretty hot book nowadays. So
House of Slaughter. House of
yeah,
M
the
was
House. No, sorry, yeah, House of Slaughter. Sorry, that's X
House
Men
of
because he
M.
mentioned X Men, so my brain went switched to. But the House of Slaughter
yeah,
is a hot
I
book,
wish
so
I wish I
you'll
had done covers for House of M at the time, but I
yeah.
don't even think that I was already working in comics by then. Actually, yeah. When was House of M? Was it?
House of M was like 2003, I think, something like that.
No, it's later than that. I think it's 2010, 2010-ish.
It's one of
So
the first
that
events. I remember that.
Hmm.
yeah. So now,
Hmm.
like you said, you weren't working in comics then. So what was your journey? Like how what got you into it? Like and what brought you to North America? Because
Yeah.
you're not originally from here, right?
No, no,
So
no, no, no.
what does that journey consist of?
I'll try. I don't even know how we go for time because it's a long story. So I'll try to make it a little more truncated. But
Yeah.
I'm originally from Mozambique. Mozambique is a
Yeah.
country that neighbors South Africa.
Hmm.
And in fact, if you think of the continent of South Africa, the continent of Africa, and think Madagascar, which is right beside it, Mozambique is the country that mirrors Madagascar in the continent. So so that's how you can see where it is. In any case, Mozambique is a former Portuguese colony, and at the time
Hmm.
when I was a kid, around 8 or 9, I was getting a lot of we got a lot of books shipped from donations, like lots of donations from Portugal, from Brazil as well, and like these books would then go to bookstores or to the National Library and whatnot. But my dad was working in the National Railway at the time, so what he would do, we would go to the containers where they had the books that are just arriving. We would just go and pick up books there.
Okay.
So at the time, I was reading a lot of bande dessinée, a lot of the French albums. I grew up reading that, and I remember around 8, it was like a combination of factors. A friend of mine that had just returned from Portugal had bought the first edition of the Brazilian print of the first X Factor book, or is it the fifth? I don't remember. The one where you see the original 5 for the first time on the X Factor title.
Okay.
So this is way back when, and my cousin which was also visiting Portugal, comes back from Portugal with a book with one of the issues from Wolverine, the Chris Claremont and Frank Miller miniseries.
Frank Miller, yeah.
Yeah, and I had like nightmares over that, like over the cover. The cover was so iconic, and that got me hooked. I started reading American comics. I smuggled American comics. Like every time I would go buy bread, some of the change would not return. I would return with the comic book hidden down my shirt.
Yeah. That's the trick. Every kid, every kid uses that trick.
Yeah, until the day that my dad found because I didn't hide it very well. I had this drawer where I would just put the comics in. He just opened it, and it's like a bunch of comics, and he just ripped them up. I'm like, what the fuck's this? Anyways, so I grew up reading that, and immediately I always drew, but immediately that type of telling a story captivated me. So you would hear somebody say boom bap, psh. It was me drawing on a paper and creating my own story. I think I briefly stopped collecting comics when I went to university in Brazil, because in Brazil at the time the books were very, very expensive. They did like what we would now think as like big trades with like 60 to 80 page trades, and they were expensive to buy. So I just didn't get them. And my teachers, I was studying architecture. My teachers kept telling me, you instead of putting Spider-Man and Godzilla in your buildings here, why don't you start working in comics? Because there were some nerd teachers there as well. And it's funny because I still talk to them nowadays, and they're like, "See, I'm telling the truth." For me, because I never thought of an African person creating comics, because I had never seen that. So like even living in Brazil, because I had seen Brazilian creators there. I'm like, that's not for me. That's for other people. That's for everybody but me. So when I opened I opened a DeviantArt in early 2003, I think, and like a week or two after, somebody was asking me if I would be interested in working for a book for them. I was like, yeah, and it was a minor thing, but not a year after that, somebody was asking me to do the Image Shadowline book, and I was like, really? So after all this time, for me, it's still kind of surreal, because I'm sure, in fact, I have seen the more African creators that do their own creations. They have their own universes and whatnot, but I saw my book on the credits of a Spider-Man book, which is I still have to pinch myself to think that way, because to think that that's real, because no joke, in Mozambique, it is. I have said this many times, but it's still very true. You can aspire to be a NASA engineer and go be an astronaut, but to think that you're gonna draw Superman, Spider-Man, nowadays it's way more possible because of the internet. But at the time when I was growing up, it's just not real at all. So I never thought that I could do that. So I got the Image gig, did that book, and I got malaria right after, like right as I was finishing the third issue, which got me in trouble with editorial. So at the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm never gonna work in comics, because I just burned myself. My opportunity got burned.
Yeah.
But luckily, which it's one of those, this is just a luck twist of fate kind of things. I was watching TV while I was living in Porto Alegre, which is the city I was living in Brazil, and I saw this interview with a creator, the Brazilian artist that had a comic book studio in the very same city, called Raphael Albuquerque. And I'm like, maybe I should go talk to that person. And I went and joined the studio. And I'm sure you're very familiar with who Raphael Albuquerque is.
Yes, he's worked on several titles like American Vampire, just to name a few.
So
a lot of Vertigo work, actually.
Exactly. So Raphael, he got me in touch with editorial. He got me in touch with agents and whatnot, and he taught me a lot of stuff. In fact, when I joined the studio, I'm like, yeah, I know how to do stuff. I am kick-ass artist. And then Raphael just told me, yeah, dude, your storytelling is not good. You use pencils thinking that you're inks, but you can't ink. I think there's a lot to learn here. And I humbled myself. I'm like, you know what? It's time to learn. So I was there from 2007 to 2008 when I got the gig to do Final Crisis. And at the time that I got to the gig to get Final Crisis, I was still at the studio, but I wasn't getting a lot of gigs. I got a few covers from Boom, wasn't getting a lot of gigs, wasn't getting a lot of money, and I got evicted. So at the time that I got the Final Crisis book, I was kind of drifting to find a place to live, like literally that. So much so that I was reading my emails on like the college library because I couldn't. My apartment did have no power. So I'm reading the email say, "Hey, I got your first DC gig," and I'm shouting "fuck" in the middle of a library. It was not very well taken by people, but then that's basically how it all began. I did Final Crisis. I did, I think, two more titles until they offered me an exclusive contract, and I was then doing something that I never dreamt that I could do, getting paid really well, especially for the reality in Brazil at the time. I was pretty set. So that's how it all began.
Yeah, man,
Cool.
that's amazing though.
Mm. Raphael Albuquerque. He actually did a pinup for your book in the back.
He did. He did. I asked him. I actually asked three of the guys that were in the studio: Rafael, Eduardo, and Matteo Santoloco, who does artwork for the Ninja Turtles.
Mm.
And I'm just like, hey, man, for old time's sake, I don't know, because we still keep in touch. We still keep in touch from the early studio stuff, and we're friends. So I'm like, hey, it's been a bit. If you guys are cool with this, if it's in your timeline, it'd be great. So, and also I'm like, hey, if you need some stuff done, I can do it too.
Mhm.
So I was very happy that, for as much as Rafael is like, he's a mega star.
Yeah.
I like that Eduardo as well, who's a guy that has a style very, very different from all of the my friends, my creator friends, and he also did a piece for the book, and I'm like, wow, that's really, really cool. He's pretty big in Brazil, but not very well known outside of Brazil.
Does he get picked up and put running Euro magazines? Because I know that that's kind of like one of the big sources for money in a lot of the South American comics. Like the Argentinians get a lot of
I don't
um,
know. I know that he's got his own stock in Brazil. He's got a couple of his creator-owned titles running, like online comics. He does illustration. That's the one on the left. He does illustration for newspapers. He's a pretty big creator especially in like the south of Brazil.
I like his style, so yeah, I'd
Uh,
totally read his stuff if it ever came out in English, or
I kept
I'd
I
probably
keep
buy it just to look at it.
Yeah, I keep telling him if ever he gets a translated book, it would be very successful.
Yeah,
Mm.
because he's got a style like it's kind of throwback. It's kind of in line with some of the stuff that's gotten really popular over the past couple years. So yeah, it'd be
True.
a really good time for somebody like him to break in
Yeah.
if he could.
So back to your RDW book. Do you have an idea when you're going to launch your next Kickstarter for it for Volume 2?
I wouldn't do it through Kickstarter. I'm gonna try to use a different crowdfunding method. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
seeing which one is the best. I know that being in Quebec, La Ruche is an option, and there's a lot of people that talk about that. I found another one called Fundraiser as well. There's people using
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah,
Canto.
I just
What's the
Cankor by
Matt?
Matthew Allison. Yeah,
Cancor. Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, is
Oh, I
using
did
ju-
that
not even know.
fundraiser.
Yeah,
Oh, you use
he
fundraiser. So fundraiser is, I'm kind of more inclined to use
it's
fundraiser
really
for a
easy to
while.
use too. I would recommend using that one as a
Exactly.
secondary to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Another one that I know some people are using is Zoop. I think Tim Selly has
I
one coming to Zoop. The
saw I
art,
see people talking about Zoop as well,
uh,
but so far I'm a little more inclined to use a fundraiser. I would probably do it around the same time that I did the previous one, which was October, November.
mhm.
It will highly depend on how I get set, because the next few months, this basically what I'll be doing is cover work, commissions, and work on the book, and it will depend on how much I can get set to then approach. Because whereas the first book was, oh yeah, by the way, I got 52 weeks to do this book, and I already painted five of the pages, or actually I was in the midst of completing those five for the campaign and whatnot. This, I have 5 pages that are already painted. It's 60 books, but I'm thinking of scrapping them all together and paint something else. So I would have to do it from scratch. So I will need to have something closer to at least just 52 pages to paint. So we'll see how we get towards that.
Okay.
But the plan is to get around October, November to do the campaign.
Um, if people wanted to get a hold of this book,
Hmm.
where do they go if they want to buy this?
I
See
have
this
a
how the,
I have
yeah.
a Gumroad store. I don't know if you can link anything, because I can, like, if you go to my Twitter profile, it's on there. It's immediately there. But I have a Gumroad store, and I am in the process of now revamping my website, focusing more on the book and the company that I created to print that book. And I'm gonna set a store there, so you can get a digital copy and a physical copy of the book, or both. So I'm gonna. I mean, if you can get the book right now, as I said, there's a digital and a physical version of the book. I'm The way that I'm changing the store. I'm gonna make it more approachable to people, I suppose. So I just don't know exactly when I'll be done editing the stuff that I
Mhm.
need to edit for the website. But yes, you can find, like, I have a Gumroad store. In my Twitter profile is the link that is there. But if you when you post this, if you have links, you can just link it through it.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect. Another thing also is you're partnered with Cadence Art, right?
Cadence.
If people want to buy, yeah, if people want to buy
Cadence.
some of your pages, yeah, if
Yeah.
they go on there, they can go and browse all your stuff, and you can buy stuff through there. Which I don't know if a lot of people are aware of
Yeah.
uh, this site, but it's a great site that a lot of comic artists use to sell pages, covers. Their original artwork is up on
Yeah.
there, so people can go find a lot of your stuff there if they're interested
Oh
in
yeah,
a
most of
specific
it.
page. Or yeah,
Yeah.
man, like that's another great place you could go to find some of
I
your
would I
stuff.
would say that probably the only stuff that you might not find it's early DC Comics stuff, because I have that at the Beguiling, the bookstore, the Beguiling. They also sell artwork.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I have a store at the Beguiling that I had it when I started in, like, a DC. So some of my early DC Comics stuff I have there, and I have with myself. Like, if I go to the shows,
Yeah,
you can
shows.
find.
Yeah, yeah. Like when I met you at the con, you had
Exactly.
quite a few Swamp Thing
Yeah, which
pages. Yeah.
people think it's criminal, but I sell those for cheaper. So
Yeah,
people,
I was really surprised at the price you're selling those for. I
yeah.
was like, damn, I wish I would have brought more money because I could.
The, the only thing that for the time being that I don't make available for purchase is the artwork for RDW. It's my first book. If I sell artwork for it, it would be much due to necessity. So far
Yeah,
it's fine. It can stay put.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got plenty of other stuff you can sell. So
Yeah. There's a lot of Winter Soldier stuff. There's Spider-Man stuff. There's Swamp Thing. There's Final Crisis. There's a bunch of stuff. I even did it I mean, I was gonna say I even did an Avengers book, which was actually my very first Marvel book. I only did 4 pages for it. They got sold immediately, so
yeah.
I don't have those. But yeah, most of the stuff, in fact, most of the stuff that I've done for Marvel that it isn't already sold is still at Cadence.
Is there one character that like big two, independent, whatever, that you would love, like if you could do a one shot of any character that you'd love to work on, what would that character be?
I can give you the very, very cliched answer of, since I've worked in creator own, I much fancy just working on mine.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I love the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer and Daredevil have always been like my favorite characters. I think Stan Lee's Silver Surfer
Oh,
is one of the best Superman stories never told.
okay.
So I really, and Silver Surfer Requiem is one of my favorite stories of all time. So the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Um, there is one of the books that I grew up reading when I was a kid is a bande dessinée album called, like, I just know it in French, Le Vagabond de l'Ambe,
Okay.
which I don't know. What's his face? What's Alan? What's the name of the megastar that changed the X-Men forever? It's not Alan Davis. I forget his name now. Scott. Oh, Jesus Christ. Neil
Huffington?
Adams.
Oh,
Neil Adams. Neil Adams took. Actually, it wasn't. It's not the Vagabond de l'Homme. Well, Le Vagabond de l'Homme, yes, but there's also a book called Five for Infinity that Neil Adams actually tried to make it his own. That was drawn by Esteban Maroto. I also grew up reading that book. It's amazing, amazing. Uh, that book is from the 60s. So yeah, wait, nobody cares about that. So I would say, yeah, the Silver Surfer, or if I was into digital coloring, creating, drawing, and whatnot, which I honestly I'm not that type of artist. Kyle Rayner Green Lantern book,
Okay.
because it's very well advertised that Kyle is the most creative of the Green Lanterns, and he's an artist and whatnot. And I should say that I haven't read Green Lantern books in a very long time, so I might be mistaken. But very seldom do I see his creativity coming to fore when he has to do the Green Lantern stuff. He did it at the
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah.
but like you would want to see some crazy ass stuff. The early stories from like early Green Lantern stories, he would come up with the weirdest stuff. But then when Jordan came back to being a Lantern and the troop came back, it's kind of Kyle goes back into the back burner, and he's no longer, or he's Jesus. He's the Green Lantern Jesus. And I'm like, he can't be the Green Lantern Jesus and still come up with crazy ass stuff. But he wasn't. So yeah, I would say the Silver Surfer, Green Lantern, space stuff, essentially.
Yeah, cosmic. Yeah, you're into the cosmic stuff, man. Yeah.
Cosmic
That's
space.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I dig it. But also, you mentioned Daredevil. I could see you doing some crazy, like with the way he sees.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I could see you doing some cool stuff with Daredevil as well, because
yeah,
visually, there's you could, yeah, I could picture that as well. I There's a few times you mentioned Bound Disney, and
yeah,
that's one thing that this book brought a little nostalgia back to me,
yeah,
because I grew up in Quebec and I went to French school, and
yeah,
Bound Disney is like, and this format is the exact format of
yeah.
like the like Asterix, Lucky Luke. What else did we read? Like all those books I used to take out of the library at school. Like it's this format. So like that's one thing. When I saw the book right away, boom! I just like a flash, like back to
And
when I was a kid taking these out of the library.
and it's my own
Yeah.
mistake. And it's my own mistake that when I painted the pages, was still thinking on 11 by 17, which is not the format. So
No.
the pages are not the format. The pages are on American oversized, but American 11 by 17 format, which you are richer in doing the bande dessinée. If you're doing a bande dessinée, you have more surface area to draw, to put stuff in. With the bigger, like, it's not a square, but it's just a bit larger. Like the width is a little more generous. Whereas with 11 by 17, which is the format for American comics, is just a little more limited.
That's why you have the it's a little wider, the black edge on
Exactly.
the each side.
Yeah.
For your next issue, have you changed the format that you're using to do the original art on?
I'll keep the print format, but I'll try, especially because even though I already penciled most of the book, it's just a matter of adding a little more surface area and drawing on it. But yeah, I will be adding more surface area. It's just the book is designed like I don't want to like poo-poo on other formats. It's just like the book is designed on that form because much of the story that I'm telling, okay, not the story itself, but the way that I'm telling a story is harkening back on the way that I consume stories when I was a kid. So bande dessinée was a big part of that. I mean, I consume, like, Le Vagabond de l'Âme is not for kids. And I was reading that. If you're not aware of what it is, think of Metal Hurlan and think of a long story. It's like Thor. It's like the artwork of Thorgal in the not painted, like so. So the artwork would be kind of Thorgalish, but in ink, like ink and traditional coloring. Crazy ass concept of the man that is looking for a woman inside his own dream. But he's looking for her when he's awake. So he's looking for her in different locations and whatnot. There's a whole lot of stuff happening, and it's a brilliant book. The imagery is out there. As I say, just think of heavy metal, but with not overtly sexualized. It's a French book, so there is some sexuality to it, and it's fine.
But it's funny, the way you just described that, I see a lot of parallels to your book. The way you described him looking for the girl in his dreams is almost like your character Astrid, who's looking for Mahen, where she has these feet. What? How do you pronounce it?
It's like a menhir, because it's a reference to Obelix, and he carries menhirs.
Ah, okay, yeah. Okay, and like when she has her dreams, and like when she wakes up and she thinks the Grimace character is him, and she's kind of stuck between these two worlds and has a hard time differentiating between the two. Yeah, it's like the way you just explained it, like I see a lot of that influence in your book, which is fantastic.
Let me show you one of the more like famous covers of the albums for anybody that's like, just give me a second, because I have them right here.
Well, I love French comics, so yeah, if I can get a hold of it, I'll check it out.
This is it. As I said, not exactly for kids.
Okay, I think I've seen that around.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very cool book. It's also quite old.
Who's the publisher of that? Like, if you want to buy copies of it today.
Dargaud. It's all old Dargaud.
Oh. Yeah. Then it might actually be in English then if Dargaud put it out.
Yeah. I think you may find it in English.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, this is the cover that I was looking for. Sorry about that.
Oh, I thought you wanted the titty cover, man. I was all about it too.
There you go.
Oh, that is beautiful. Look at that.
This is one of the more known books from the series of books.
Excellent. Yeah. And I noticed on Twitter, you tweeted out that you're thinking about booking some cons coming up now
Yeah.
with things getting a little better. People are getting more people are vaccinated. You seem to feel more confident about going to shows and cons.
Yeah.
Like, which is surprising when I saw you write that, because I met you at the mini con that Montreal had just before Christmas. So I was like, oh,
To do
yeah,
that show, like it was like a mental hurdle to go, because I tend to be just a little more like paranoid about these things. So far, nothing has happened, and my it's just it's scary. Essentially, the whole thing is scary. So when the guys from the show contacted me, I was like, okay, we this is before it was even the third before the third vaccination was
yeah,
instituted. So
exactly, yeah,
but things were opening up, and I know the organizers for the Montreal Comic Con. Like, so when when Cliff contacted me, I was like, all right, sure, of course I'm gonna go. The only thing I will have to see is if I have a place to stay, because I'm no longer living in Montreal.
yeah,
So having that solved, it was also an opportunity for me and my lady to go back to Montreal since we left. It had been a year since we had left, so it's good. It's good to go hang out and just meet old friends and whatnot. So at the end of the day, I look forward to that. It's still pretty daunting, especially because my instinct is, because of the convention environment, is to go, hey, how you doing? Shake hands.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I give hugs. My friend, oh friend, hug and whatnot, and you just can't do it. So there's always this. It's a whole different paradigm with this thing. So it's a bit scary, but at the end of the day, we're going back to a similar situation that we were when the conventions when that convention happened. We
Mm-hmm.
are boosted. We are very keen on being like safe and secure and cleaned up and whatnot, and it is a very good opportunity to promote the book as well. So I look forward to that. I actually booked my first time doing the Festival de BD, which I had never done before.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I will be there. Obviously, I will do, if things continue to progress in a positive way, I will do the Montreal show. Ironically, I talked to my agent, the guys from Cadence, to telling them, all right, I will be available to do conventions, because they booked me conventions outside of Canada. And
Okay, yeah.
the guy asked me, hey, do you want to do a Fan Expo in Montreal, in Toronto? I'm like, well, yeah. I, uh, I I have done Fan Expo one too many times. I don't mind doing it again. So I just thought it was funny that the first show they were like, "Yeah, you want to stay in Canada and do a show there?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." So I was still seeing how it is with availability and whatnot, but I might do Fan Expo. It's the only thing that I know so far. But if there are more shows open, I should be available, just depending on where it is and what's the logistic around it. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, and like you said, it's a great way to promote your books.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best of luck at these conventions, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
hopefully you'll sell tons of copies.
I mean, I took for the show in Montreal. My goal was like I would like to sell half to a box of books, and on Friday I had sold only 2 books. So I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be slow. That's not gonna happen. And at the end of the show, I had sold a box and a half, and I'm like, you know what? Never mind. Good.
Yeah,
So I at the end of the day, for as much as I can post online, hey, the book is available. Look at how pretty it looks. Go buy my book and whatnot. It is, huh? Festival de BD. Okay, they will block something. Yeah, you're supposed to, you're under embargo. You're not supposed to say that they will block something. You should, that's classified information. You should not share. Anyway, anyways, um, at the end of the day, it is a very effective tool to just you know what? Get on your soapbox. By the way, I did this book. Do you want to check it out? Because one of the things that I had at the show was I had an open book. Like you can flip through it if you find it, if you fancy it, you can take one home.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Well, you were one of the guys I saw on the names when, because it was kind of a last minute thing. My wife and I drove into Montreal. We came to the convention, and there was Jake, Andy, and yourself that I was interested in coming to see and meet. So yeah, we had a great time. Like, I mean, obviously it was a smaller turnout than a normal convention because you know it's. I think Montreal hasn't had a comic convention in what 2 years. The Comic Con. So yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's not under embargo anymore. Okay, cool.
What
St.
you?
Denis?
Sorry?
That's a street. It's a street, pretty popular street in Montreal, downtown in the Plateau. So yeah, that's cool that they're going to close it off. That's what Jake was saying last week, that it's outdoors. So that's a fun.
Sweet. I just hope it doesn't rain.
Yeah. Do you know the dates for that?
27 to 29.
27, 29 of okay.
March. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, hold on. Is it March or May?
May. I believe it's in May, right?
Oh, I think it's May. Yeah, it's May.
Yeah. Okay. Jake made the same mistake last week when he was on.
This is the same artist as the Scarlet Witch. Yes, the Sequential Geek.
Cool.
You can ask me about Scarlet Witch if you want to. I had fun working on that. I just posted something about it like today.
Yeah. You worked with Matt Kent on that one.
No. That was James Robinson. I worked with Matt Kent.
Oh no, sorry. Matt Kent was the Spider-Man. Yes, sorry, my mistake. James Robinson, who also wrote one of Johnny's favorite books, the Starman run. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've worked with a lot of my favorites. You worked with A-List Scott, who I absolutely adore. I thought I saw you and him were going to be working on something else, but he seems to be so busy and like really sporadically in and out of comics that I think that project got dropped. But I think I remember him announcing something about 2 years ago that you and him were developing something new together.
Who did you mention?
A-List Scott?
Oh, I think so.
The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, he was saying that it was going to be an indie book that he was going to.
Oh shit! It's just that I pronounce it differently. Yes.
Yeah.
We had a project at AWA, I think so, but because of the pandemic, the project had to get stopped, and I started working full time on my creator own, and then I couldn't go back to it, so I asked for somebody else to replace me.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I worked with Alish on the Winter Soldier, of course. It was that one, and I think I did a cover for one of his books as well. Would have like a red and blue, like the stop sign, but it was like on a horizontal. I remember that cover. It was just
that was for the Surface, right? I think I actually have that cover.
Exactly, the Surface, yes.
Yeah, good call, Sequential Geek. His art is kind of reminiscent of Steve Pugh, a little more, I would say, freehand. I would say that Steve Pugh's
not necessarily, but you could say that in a way, because I think some of Steve's, I don't know, but some of his influences could be the stuff that were being done with SwampThing by John Tolobane and Stephen Bissett at the time, and Rick Veitch as well. So you could say that that has influenced me, and if it's the same source, maybe gotta be that. Self-disinfectant spacesuit is a clever idea.
Yeah. So, Marco, is there anything? Obviously, plug your book one more time before we head out. People go pick this book up. It's amazing. It's beautiful. A wonderful story of the effects of loss and how people can get lost in their grief and how they manage that loss, and that like it can overcome and rule your your world. It can become your life, and it's beautifully done, beautifully rendered, beautifully illustrated by Marco. It's definitely a must read. You guys should go pick that up. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to plug. Maybe your socials.
Well,
Uh,
I think specifically towards the book or towards the story, the only thing that I would say is that it is really, really an opener chapter, that book.
mhm.
And you probably will feel like, oh, I want. Well, if you liked it, I want more in the ways that like, oh, that's it. So there is way more story to be told. One of the things that I'm really keen on the story that I'm telling is the world that I'm building. And this is, I'm not even spoiling this because it's basically the very first scene of the book two, in which I make a very, very clear reference to Johnny Mnemonic. If
Okay.
you've seen Johnny Mnemonic, you will get the reference. If you haven't, you'll just have to read the book. And so I'm very excited about the the smaller and bigger things that I'm peppering this world with, at the same time that I'm continuing the story of this character and how the characters react to the fact that they're quote unquote not good in the head. So if you like that, or if you're curious enough, it gets more it gets more interesting, I suppose. It's at least more in the way of story. As I said, the second book has 60 pages of story. Also, one thing that I did on the first book that I will do it on the second book as well is, the moment the story finishes, there's bits and pieces of the world that I put in the book, as in letters or whatever, that I put in the first book, that I will put in the second book as well, continuing to inform what the story is about. As for myself, I am Marco Rudy on Twitter. I am Marco Rudy on Instagram. I'm Marco Rudy on Facebook. It's not very hard to find me. I have not updated my DeviantArt gallery in years, so but there's artwork there. My original artwork is available to be sold at Cadence. You can contact them or just find them on Twitter. My Twitter has the link to the store for the book, or the store that I'm currently using for the book, which I will change on the bio, right there at the beginning. But I think some of these links you guys will link on there. So find me there. Cool. If you fancy me talking about nerd shit and how climate change is going to kill us all, yeah, let's you can find me on social media. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. On Instagram, you did post a few good jokes recently, like little comic strip jokes that you
Oh yeah,
shared. I thought that those were pretty fun. It's
I,
not all doom and gloom.
I have a very, very peculiar sense of humor, in which is not very mature. So if you fancy that, oh yeah, there's lots of that. Yeah.
And you're aiming for next fall for your next
Yeah, yeah,
Kickstarter camp.
yeah.
Well, not probably not Kickstarter, obviously, but your
Yeah,
next
more,
fundraising
yeah,
campaign will.
more towards the end of the year. And I understand that it's not exactly the best time of the year for go on crowdfunding, but logistically, it's just the best that works for me. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to make it work.
Excellent.
Yes, indeed. Hand painted, all of it.
Yeah, acrylic, hand painted. It takes a while, but it's worth it.
But all right, we've kept Mr. Rudy for about an hour and a half. I think we got a lot of really neat insights from him. We got a
Thank
lot
you.
of really fun stories and cute anecdotes. And I really want to thank him for being here. This was a really, really solid, really fun episode, really good interview. This, of course, is Pink Buzz, a product of graphic vandalism. And you know what that means? That means do not stop reading. Never stop reading. Support amazing music always, and always check out new independent films. Until next time, take it easy, y'all.